Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in, and thank you for spending a few minutes of your day with me. I recognize that you have lots of options, and glad that you decided to join me today. To close or not to close? That's the question being asked on Capitol Hill this week, as the Democrats are trying to convince the American people that they're willing to work with President Trump and the GOP to avoid a shutdown. We have the real story for you in today's show. There's new information on the two shooters over the bloody weekend, seeing people die in a church shooting in Michigan and another deadly shooting at a waterfront restaurant in a coastal North Carolina town. Both shooters were veterans and seemed to have been having mental issues related to their service history. Are we taking good care of our veterans? We'll dive into that today. YouTube's parent company agrees to settle a lawsuit with President Trump for $24.5 million. And guess what the president plans to do with the money? I have the answer for you. Not that it matters to us. An Australian company is finding out what the Dylan Mulvaney effect is all about, as they are losing millions of dollars due to a woke decision.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Well, folks, buckle up. We've been down this path before. We've heard this argument before. Washington's at it again. The clock is ticking toward another government shutdown, and both sides are gearing up for a full-blown messaging war. It's just a matter of who do you believe. Speaker Mike Johnson is out front this week with a memo to House Republicans titled Debunking the Democrats' Shutdown Delusion. It's a shot across the bow and a sign that Republicans are determined not to let the Democrats control the narrative this time around. Outside of the White House yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance had a message for the American people.
If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what the Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now, we have to remember, they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. Well, we know that American health care policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy that Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together. But let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see.
No, Mr. Vice President, I don't think they'll change their mind, but I'm glad that you have a little optimism that maybe they would. So here's the breakdown on this. Speaker Johnson's message is very simple. Republicans have done their job. They passed a clean short-term funding bill, no partisan riders, no poison pills, just a 24-page continuing resolution that keeps government funding exactly where it is through November the 21st to give them a little breathing room. That's 7 more weeks of stability while Congress hammers out the big debates without shutting down the government. So what's the holdup? What's wrong with this? According to Speaker Johnson, Democrats are the ones playing chicken with the shutdown, demanding that this temporary bill include unrelated policy fights, like extending Obamacare subsidies that don't expire until the end of the year. Johnson says those debates can happen separately. Democrats don't need to hold the entire government hostage to push their agenda. The memo is pretty pointed. It says Democrats are pushing a false narrative that Republicans want to end health care for millions. We've heard this argument before, haven't we? But Johnson's team fires back. The GOP plan fully funds health care programs at current levels, no cuts. I mean, this is exactly what the vice president was talking about just a moment ago. The speaker is also warning about what's inside the Democrat alternative. Free health care for illegal immigrants. That should be enough to tell you right there that the Democrats are not genuine when they say that they want to help. $500 million to prop up liberal media outlets. A $50 billion cut to rural health care investments. And billions for DEI and climate projects overseas. They haven't learned that the American people are tired of the DEI and the climate, the sky is falling arguments. They just haven't realized this. They haven't realized that's why they lost the 24 elections. Republicans are calling this a Christmas tree of liberal priorities and insisting it has nothing to do with keeping the lights on in the nation's capital. Meanwhile, Democrats led by Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries are accusing Republicans of playing politics with people's lives, using federal workers as pawns in a political game. But the speaker's memo flips that right back, saying if Democrats force a shutdown, they'll own it. In other words, Republicans say the off-ramp is ready, and it's the Democrats who won't take it. They're not budging. Speaker's line is clear. Support the clean CR or take the blame. Those are your two choices. Now, let's be honest here. We've seen this movie before, haven't we? Every few months, Washington threatens a shutdown, and both sides scramble to pin the blame on the other. How many times have we heard this? But here's the difference this time. President Trump is back in the White House, and his administration says they're ready to manage a shutdown if it happens, making tough calls to prioritize national security, paychecks for the military, and critical operations. But President Trump and Speaker Johnson both insist they'd rather not go there. Nobody would like to go there. They're urging Democrats to take the simple, no-drama deal on the table. Why wouldn't they? Why would the Democrats not say, okay, we haven't really been doing our jobs. None of us have. We don't have an agreement here. Let's extend it for a couple more months until we get a resolution here. The House has already passed Speaker Johnson's bill, mostly along party lines. The fight now moves to the Senate, where Democrats hold the gavel, and so far they've shown little interest in moving it forward. They just want to sit there and bellyache. If the Senate drags its feet or changes the bill and nothing passes by midnight, October the 1st, we're going to see a partial shutdown. That means furloughs for non-essential workers, delays in federal services, and the usual scramble for the blame, pointing the fingers. But make no mistake, Johnson's memo is laying the groundwork now. If the lights go out, he wants the voters to know who flipped the switch. And it's very simple. And here's the bigger picture. The Republican message is one of fiscal responsibility. Fund the government at current levels. Keep spending in check and save the policy battles for separate legislation. That's common sense. Democrats, meanwhile, are trying to leverage the deadline to lock in long-term welfare spending and progressive policies. They're trying to bully the Republicans into committing to programs that we don't need to commit to anyway. Sound familiar? It's the same Washington brinksmanship that we've seen for years. Only now, the stakes are a bit higher. With election season heating up, neither side wants to be blamed for a shutdown that hits voters in the wallet. So here's what to watch as we progress in the next couple of days. Will Senate Democrats take up the clean GOP bill or push their own package with policy add-ons? We'll wait and see. Will President Trump step in to broker a last-minute deal? Or will he let Democrats walk into the blame trap? And will either party show the kind of leadership Americans are desperate for, putting stability over party politics? Because, folks, here's the truth. The American people are tired of manufactured crisis. Aren't you tired of hearing this same argument over and over? And we've heard it how many times? We want fiscal sanity, not finger pointing. We want government accountability, not political theater. And we want leaders who remember they work for us. We pay their salaries every single month, not for their next campaign ad. So as the clock ticks towards October the 1st, keep your eyes on Speaker Mike Johnson. He's setting the tone for Republicans. No gimmicks, no shutdown, no surrender. And keep an ear on Democrats in the Senate, because if they reject this clean funding bill, the message from the GOP is crystal clear. You're going to own the shutdown, Chucky Schumer. Let's be honest. Those summer vacations and backyard barbecues added some extra pounds, right? But instead of feeling guilty or falling further behind, it's time to reset, drop the weight, and get back in control. The solution isn't a shot. Real lasting weight loss starts with your mind, not your mouth. At PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team help you uncover the real reasons behind your weight gain so that you can reprogram the way you think about food forever. PhD clients lose up to a third of their body weight without ever taking a drug. I know, because I lost 33 pounds with PhD weight loss. Through real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science, your body can become a natural fat-burning machine. Why risk spending thousands on shots that strip away muscle, come with dangerous side effects, and leave most people regaining 60% of the weight within a year? With PhD, you'll activate your body's natural appetite control, burn fat safely, and stay in control. Even if you're already on Ozempic, PhD can help you transition off while still losing weight. Take the first step today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. We had just a horrible weekend. 2 mass shootings, 2 communities shattered, and there was one common denominator. So let's review here. The Southport, North Carolina shooting. A man opened fire at a waterfront restaurant, the American Fish Company, which turned what was a quiet evening into chaos. 3 people were killed here, 8 more wounded. The suspect, Nigel Max Edge, was a combat veteran, a man who once served his country honorably, but somewhere along the way lost his grip on reality. Then we head up to Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, where a Latter-day Saints church became a battlefield. Police say that Thomas Jacob Sanford, a Marine veteran who served in Iraq, rammed his truck into the building, opened fire on worshipers, and set the church ablaze. It burned to the ground. Multiple people are dead, four so far that have been identified, others wounded, and an entire congregation is in mourning. 2 shootings, 2 veterans, both reportedly struggling with PTSD, paranoia, delusion, and other mental issues, and both leaving behind, according to reports, and these are early reports, warning signs, lawsuits, erratic behavior, cries for help that somehow didn't trigger the help that they needed. So let's talk about this. Let's pause and ask questions that immediately come to my mind. Are we doing enough, truly enough, for the men and women we send to war when they come back home? We train them to fight. We send them into chaos. We ask them to carry the weight of defending freedom, and then too often we hand them a thank you note, a flag, and a prescription bottle. And we hope that that's enough, and clearly it's not in some cases. These 2 men once wore the uniform of the United States Armed Forces. They faced the horrors of war, IEDs, gunfire, trauma, things that leave scars that you cannot unsee. And when they came home, the battle didn't stop. It just changed battlegrounds. From deserts and cities overseas, strange lands, to the more familiar of their hometowns. Now, this isn't about excusing what they did. Let's be absolutely clear here. What happened in North Carolina, what happened in Michigan are evil acts. Innocent people who were at church, worshiping, and out having dinner with their families lost their lives. Families are grieving today because of it, and justice must be served. But we can also think about two truths at once, that these acts were horrific and that the system failed long before the first shot was fired. We've known for years that veteran suicide rates remain tragically high and continues to be high, around 17 a day. We know that PTSD is often left untreated or untreated. We know that navigating the VA system can feel like fighting another war. I mean, I've talked with veterans who say the VA system is just horrible. And we know that the stigma around mental health keeps too many of our heroes silent. They don't want to talk about it until it's too late. So you have to ask the question, when veterans start showing signs of delusion, anger, paranoia, things that would suggest that they're suffering with PTSD, when they're filing these bizarre lawsuits that have been reported, when they're making threats, when they lose touch with reality, where are the safety nets? Where's the intervention? Where's the accountability from the institutions designed to help these men and women? We spend billions of dollars sending troops into battle. But when they come home, the support seems to dry up in some cases. The waiting lists are long, I'm told. The counseling is short. The follow-up sometimes just doesn't exist. We've got to flip that script, don't we? Because the cost of neglect is no longer just borne by the veteran. It's being paid in lives lost in our restaurants and churches and communities. What happened this past weekend isn't just a story about gun violence. It's a story about spiritual and emotional collapse. It's about what happens when the demons of war go untreated and spill into civilian life, spill into everyday life. So what do? Well, somehow we've got to set up the support system that our veterans need so that there's someone there to listen, someone there to hopefully intervene before it gets to this point. And we can all do our part too. If you have a friend who's a veteran, if you have a church member who's a veteran, if you see that veteran struggling, speak up. Don't dismiss the signs. Don't assume that, they're just fine. PTSD isn't a weakness. It is a wound, and wounds need care. We can demand accountability from the VA and from Congress helping these men and women. Our veterans deserve timely care, real therapy, and community reintegration that goes beyond medication and checklists. And, of course, one of the most important parts, and this is something that we can call on our faith community, and that is to bring faith and fellowship into this fight. The government can't heal a soul, but the church, the community, the love of neighbors and family can do what a bureaucracy can't. So let's build veteran ministries in every congregation. Let's train pastors and lay leaders to recognize trauma, recognize the signs of PTSD. And let's offer spaces where these warriors can find peace, not shame. Let's support organizations like Upstate Warrior Solution, who's just doing a great job of filling the gap in situations like this and helping veterans. And please understand, know about the Veterans Crisis Line that's open 24/7. If you have a veteran in your family, be sure they know about it. 988. They simply just dial 988, and they will have someone there to help them. It's confidential. They can also text 838-255. They can go online to veteranscrisisline.net, and they can chat online. So there's services that are there. We need to improve them. And at the same time, we need to let these men and women know that the country is still there for them. And again, I'm not making excuses for what happened this past weekend. These two men who shot up a church at a restaurant, they fought overseas. But the battle that eventually claimed them and their victims was fought here at home. We can't save everyone, but we can try harder, don't you think? we could care more, because when our veterans fall through the cracks, the ripple effects reach every corner of our country, and that doesn't need to happen. We need to help build a nation where warriors come home and find healing, not hopelessness. And that's not just patriotism, that's Christian compassion. That's reaching out to the faith community and the faith community reaching out to the veterans and letting these men and women know we're here for you. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. One more thing on the shootings this past weekend. The big question, of course, is why? What was the motive? Why did these men do this? In the case of the church shooting, officials believe the shooter was targeting the Mormon faith. He hated that church. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt provided an update yesterday on the FBI investigation into the shooting. And, of course, he set the Michigan Mormon Church on fire as well. Here's the White House Press Secretary.
They know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith, and they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI. I think the American people in your audience can be assured. Look at the great work that the FBI did in light of, or in the hours and days following the assassination, on Charlie Kirk's life. That was a successful investigation, and that investigation continues. And that assassin was, of course, being held accountable in the court of law now.
Ms. Leavitt said that the FBI is currently executing multiple search warrants at the residences and the family homes of this perpetrator to try to get to the bottom of why he would commit such an act of evil. Authorities say that the 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, a decorated former U.S. Marine, drove his pickup truck through the church's front doors, exited the vehicle, opened fire with an assault-style rifle, then set the building ablaze. Sanford's father issued a brief statement saying the family is completely in shock and devastated, and that they have no answers for why their son would carry out such an atrocity. He described his son as a loving husband and father and asked for privacy as the family grieves. The elder Sanford told local reporters he knew his son as an ex-Marine who had been under fire once during deployment, but that otherwise, most of the time, he was fine. Investigators continue to probe motive. Law enforcement officials told reporters that they're examining Sanford's devices and background. Early reporters saying investigators are looking into whether the attacker harbored animus towards the Mormon faith link, which is what they believe. Maybe to a past relationship, though no definitive motive has been released. Local witnesses also recall troubling encounters with Sanford in the days prior to the attack. Authorities have not yet characterized the incident as terrorism, calling the probe an active criminal investigation. Fire responders in nearby hospitals were praised for rapid action that saved lives. Multiple victims were treated for gunshot wounds and smoke inhalation. Michigan and federal officials have condemned the violence and pledged federal assistance as needed, while the community mourns and officials continue their work at the scene of the crime. We'll continue to follow this story, of course. You know how President Trump wants to add on to the White House without it costing you and me any money. And that's what I love. And that's one of the big differences between the Trump administration and the Biden administration and any other Democrat administration for that matter. President Trump, he gets these ideas like the Rose Garden rehab recently, this new ballroom size addition that he'd like to add on to the White House. Now, think about that. The White House hasn't been added on to in many, many years. And you don't just do a lean-to on the White House. It's going to be very expensive, and it's going to have to be planned and designed just perfectly. And the president wants to do it, and it's probably needed. And he's saying, I can do this without it costing the taxpayers any money. And it looks like he's getting close to doing this because yesterday, Alphabet on YouTube announced that they had agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit that President Trump brought against the company over the suspension of his account following the January 2021 U.S. Capitol riots. This was released yesterday. Trump filed lawsuits against Twitter, now known as X, of course, Facebook owner Meta, as well as Alphabet's Google. And their chief executives in July 2021 were included in this as well. Allegedly, they unlawfully silenced conservative viewpoints. Both Meta and X agreed earlier this year to pay to settle the lawsuits. Under the settlement, $22 million will be paid on Trump's behalf to the Trust for the National Mall, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the construction of a $200 million ballroom that President Trump is building as part of the White House. The rest of the settlement payment will go to other plaintiffs in the case, including the American Conservative Union. Now, isn't this typical Donald Trump? Now, granted, $22 million is a fraction of the $200 million, but he can raise $200 million easily. He'll get the rest of it. But don't you just love the idea that Google, YouTube, Alphabet, that they're helping foot the bill to this new ballroom? And some people, I've heard them say, well, we don't need a new ballroom. Well, actually, if you really want to do a nice event, the East Room is where you do it in the White House. And you see images, you see video, you see it on the news, and you think, gosh, that's a nice-looking room. And it is. It's a very nice room. It's not very big. The East Room is not big at today's standards. Certainly, it's very small compared to some ballrooms around the country. And the president knows that. If you've ever been to a Trump property, you know what the ballrooms look like in his hotels. So he wants to be able to have a nice state dinner to where people can show up, and you don't have to cut the list so much. And it looks like he's getting closer and closer to accomplishing that. We'll see. At the White House, a bigger, quieter fight is brewing. The size and reach of the administrative state is the topic. You can watch in the coming months. Expect legal challenges and executive actions aimed at reining in agencies that write rules with the force of law but without direct accountability to voters. That's part of what's the problem of our federal government. There's so many of these bureaucrats who love to sit down and write a rule or a regulation that affects you and me, our businesses, our communities. Yet Congress has never approved them. It's got to stop. There's volumes and volumes of these. And that was one of the things that President Trump promised. And he successfully got rid of a lot of them in his first term. He's really sharpening his pen in the second term. Supporters call it common sense. Streamline permits, cut the red tape, make agencies answer to elected leaders as they should. Now, of course, the critics warn that it could hamstring enforcement on everything from energy to education. But the stakes are real here, folks. How quickly can we build things? How quickly can we drill for oil? How quickly can we open up manufacturing for something and innovate without waiting years for approval? And who decides where the guardrails go, Congress or career regulators? This isn't just philosophy. It shapes jobs. It shapes prices for products that we buy. It shapes your utility bill, by the way. Watch for court tests that could redraw the map between the branches. If you like smaller government and clearer lines of authority, this is the main event. You're going to love it, and we're all going to be better for it. Also, President Trump says he facilitated a candid call between Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu and Qatar's leadership after Israeli strikes reportedly impacted Qatari territory. The result, an apology from Netanyahu and a reset conversation about de-escalation, hostages, and Iran's fingerprints across the region. Now, why does this matter? Qatar is a key conduit with Hamas, and any path to calm runs through Doha. Washington's role, whoever's in charge, has always been to keep pressure on terrorists while keeping allies aligned. The message from the right is simple: peace through strength, accountability for bad actors, and zero tolerance for attacks on civilians. We'll see if this opens a lane for a broader arrangement in Gaza that stops the rockets without rewarding terrorism. For now, it's a reminder that relationships and leverage still move the Middle East. And we got to watch this closely. We've got to get some things under control in that region. So here's the bottom line. Here's where we are. Washington's sprinting toward a shutdown deadline. The White House is gearing up for a fight over the administrative state. Middle East diplomacy is back in play with Israel and Qatar. New York may drift further left with their mayoral race. I mean, through it all, though, if there is a partial shutdown, veteran services, kitchen table economics remain the pressure points that really matters to families. We'll watch it closely and be here tomorrow again to give you an update on exactly where we're headed. We're going to track the votes, the optics of what this looks like, and what it means to your wallet, to your safety. If you're a veteran, what it can mean to you. If you have concerns about health care services, what it's going to mean for you. And we're going to watch both sides, listen to the rhetoric from both sides. I mean, we kind of know the playbook that the Democrats are reading from, but we're also going to watch what the Republicans and kind of look at their keys as well. Because in the end, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you still work for the American people. One more thing on this government shutdown. Have you watched the story about the Democrats? They're catching heat for planning a luxury retreat in California, wine country, while the shutdown talks heat up. Lawmakers are allowed to meet and plan. Both parties do it. But politics is pictures. And the picture of vineyard dinners and hot tubs as federal funding hangs in the balance. How does that look? That's an ad waiting to be cut. Republicans say it shows a party out of touch with kitchen table realities, grocery prices, rent, and crime, while Congress fumbles basics like keeping the government open. Democrats counter that policy work doesn't stop because of a zip code. Still, in today's modern media, timing is everything, and this is timing, and it's not ideal for the Democrats. Expect clips, quotes, and hashtags to follow in a cycle where trust is scarce. Optics matter as much as outcomes, right? And one more thing. The White House is warning that a shutdown could ripple into veteran services, everything from nursing homes to mental health support. Politically, that is a sledgehammer because no one wants to be seen as shortchanging those who wore the uniform. Republicans argue that they've funded the VA and that Democrats are playing fear politics to force extra spending elsewhere. Democrats say the GOP is risking real-world pain to make a point. Here's the truth. Uncertainty alone hurts. Veterans need reliability, just like we talked about earlier in today's show. Appointments on time, benefits processed, hotlines answered. Serve the people who served us. That's very simple. Nail down a clean bridge to keep the doors open while you argue about the bigger number. Secure the border, shrink the bureaucracy, but don't hold vets in the crossfire. You agree? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com and get the very best price that you can possibly get. And Mike Lindell has some great prices right now on MyPillows, of course, on sheets, on bathrobes, everything that he has, you can get a discount on when you use promo code Joey. Just use my name. Throw my name around. Go to MyPillow.com. Use promo code Joey. Once again, the marketplace is sending a very clear message. If you go woke, you might go broke. We remember the Bud Light boycott, the infamous partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, a biological man who claims to be a woman, that sparked outrage across the country just a few years ago. The numbers told the story. January 2024, this happened in 2023. By January of 2024, Bud Light sales were down nearly 30% compared to the year before. Stores couldn't give the stuff away. Shelves were full, coolers were cold, and customers said no thank you. That was supposed to be a lesson learned. But apparently, some companies still did not get the memo, or at least they didn't understand what the memo was saying. So here's the latest casualty. Kamanthdu Holdings, it's known as the KMD brand. It's a New Zealand-based company behind outdoor gear labels like Rip Curl and Kamanthdu. You may not be familiar with it if you're not in that outdoor world, if you're not into hiking and rock climbing and all that kind of stuff. They just announced a massive $82.9 million loss. It was their worst in a decade after a marketing campaign featuring Sasha Lorson, a biological male surfer identifying as transgender, who replaced Bethany Hamilton, who is a female who lost her arm and a hero to millions. You've probably seen her on some of their advertising. So let's pause right here. Again, Bethany Hamilton, she's a shark attack survivor. She's a wife, a mom, a Christian, and a woman who's inspired the world by refusing to let tragedy define her. She still surfs. And she's been a strong, courageous voice for fairness in women's sports, speaking out against biological men competing against women. So what did Rip Curl do? They replaced her with a man pretending to be a woman. How stupid was that? Well, consumers responded exactly as you'd expect. They walked away from the brands. The boycott spread quickly across Australia and around the world. And while company executives are trying to downplay the impact, there's no denying the financial damage. Here are a few numbers for you. As I mentioned, $82.9 million lost, a $40 million write-down on their Obi's hiking boot line, and 21 stores have closed. Folks, this is what happens when corporate leaders stop listening to their customers and they start listening to activists. We've seen this movie before. Target, Nike, Disney, Bud Light, of course, and now Rip Curl. Each one thought they could appease the radical left, and each one alienated their base. Hardworking families, Christians, moms, and dads who just want companies to stay in their lane and stop forcing ideology down our throats, which is what they try to do. So here's the truth. Most Americans aren't hateful. We don't wish ill on anyone, but we don't want to be lectured, and we don't want to see our daughter's sports, our faith, or our common sense mocked in the name of inclusion. We're over DEI and all that it stands for. So when you take a beloved, faith-filled athlete like Bethany Hamilton, someone who's literally bled and battled for her sport, and you replace her with a man in a swimsuit calling himself a woman, you're not being inclusive, you're being insulted. You're being just downright, again, stupid. It's what is known as the Dylan Mulvaney effect. Corporate boards chasing applause from activists instead of loyalty from customers, and then acting shocked when the bottom line collapses. I mean, what idiot thought this was a good idea to put a man in place of not just any woman, not just some model who happened to be in some of your advertising, but someone who is beloved like Bethany Hamilton, someone who lost her arm in a shark attack in her sport, who was sort of the poster child for courage, for bravery, and getting back out there on a surfboard. Who does that? Somebody needs to lose their job. You agree? I mean, the free market is speaking very loudly in this case, just like it spoke to Bud Light, just like it spoke to all the other companies, to the Target, to Nike, to Disney. Consumers are tired of being force-fed radical gender ideology. We're tired of companies treating faith, family, and biology like outdated concepts. We just want truth, decency, and respect, and stay out of these types of issues. That's the beauty of America. We can vote with our wallets, and we can vote very, very loudly. So as KMD Brands counts its losses and shutter stores, maybe, just maybe, other companies will for once pay attention. You don't have to be political to succeed. You just have to know your customers and respect their values. There's no reason to get involved in some of these debates. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.